Okay, kiddos, today we're going to be dealing with area of a trapezoid. A trapezoid is a very specific shape that has one set of parallel lines. Now, if you remember, parallel means that they will never touch, and so let me try and draw a trapezoid. There's one line, there's another line. There are two sets of parallel lines, and that means that these two cannot be parallel. Parallel means that when we would extend them, when they would go this way, they would eventually cross. These two, if I extend them, will never cross. So this is a trapezoid. It has one set of parallel lines, and that is its classification. If it had two sets of parallel lines, it would be a rectangle. Our trapezoid formula comes straight from the star chart. It is 1/2, oops, there we go, 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times height. We know that h is our height. It's just like what it was in the triangle. Our base 1 is the top parallel line, and base 2 is the bottom parallel line. And that will make more sense in just a second. So let's draw a trapezoid. We have one set of parallel lines. Remember, to have a set, you have to have two. So here's our base 1, here's our base 2. If they get switched around, that's okay. The connecting line cannot be parallel. That means that if I were to extend that line, they would eventually cross, whereas these two do not. This one set of parallel lines. Remember, it would be a rectangle if it had two sets of parallel lines, or a square. So our height is the same thing as it is in a triangle. We're going to drop a perpendicular line from base 1 to base 2. It's going to form a 90-degree angle because that's what a perpendicular line does, and that is our height. And so just like with the triangle, it is very similar to the formula for a rectangle. One thing we did want to point out is, remember that multiplying by 1/2 is the same as dividing by 2. Algebra defaults to multiplication, so a lot of things is written in terms of multiplications. That's why you start seeing fractions so much. All right, let's talk about why it works. All right, why it works. So here I have two trapezoids. If I were to copy and paste it, it would look something like this. So if I were to copy, paste it, and flip it, and I put it there, I would have a rectangle. The same thing as this one. If I were to copy and paste it, it would form a parallelogram. Both of these use the formula area equals base times height. So with the base 1 and base 2, this guy right here is base 1, this is base 2. When I copy and flip it, this is base 2, and this is base 1. So what I have to do is I have to find the measurement of that entire base. I like to call it super base. And then I'm going to divide it in half because I only have half of the shape. So like on this one, here's our base 1, here's our base 2. So when it copies and pastes, here's base 2 up here, here's base 1. And I just need the side of it. So let's do that one in blue. I need that super base. That gives me, if I were to extend the rectangle, it gives me the parallelogram, but again, I only need half of it. So that's why we have to add those two together. We get an average of them. We divide it in half after we multiply it by the height, and then we would have the area of a trapezoid. So let's look at these two examples. Okay, I blew mine up a little bit, and so it's getting a little blurry there, but we're going to go through and talk about which parts we need to use. Is there any extra information in here? So I always want to start out writing the formula. Area equals 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times height. All right? So I'm going to continue this down, and I'm going to look for what I can substitute in. 1/2 would be a constant. It's going to change. It's going to stay the same. So let's see what I have. Let's find my bases. Here's base 1. Here's base 2. So what that means is I'm going to need to use that measurement and that measurement. So in parentheses, I'm going to put 2 plus 4. My height is the next thing I need to look at. It's going to form a perpendicular. Everyone say it? Oh, I just heard you. Perpendicular between here and there. It's going to make a 90-degree angle right there. So I need that number right there. So what about this 5 right here? Do I need that? Nope, but that is what's called extra information for area. Now, I might need it for perimeter, but we're not doing that right now. So then I'm going to solve what's in parentheses first. PEMDAS tells me I'm going to do that first. So I'm going to carry down 1/2. In here I have 2 plus 4, which is 6, times 3. So now I can address this. I'm going to choose to multiply my whole numbers first. 1/2 times 18. And then I'm going to divide that by 2 or multiply 18 by 1/2. Please remember, those are the same things. So when I have half of 18, what do I have? I have 9. So then I need to look at this. This is centimeters, and it will be a square unit because it is an area, and then I'm going to box my answer. Let's look at this beautiful trapezoid here. I know it's a trapezoid because I have two parallel lines, or one set of parallel lines. I want to make sure I say that clearly. So let's look at our parallel lines. The first thing I'm going to do is find this one, and there's that one. If I were to continue those would never touch. So there's my base 1, there's my height. Let's go ahead and label that. We didn't do that on the last one. Base 1, base 2. Now my height on this one is actually going to be a side, because this side right there forms a 90-degree angle. It forms a perpendicular angle. So this is my height. Okay, what is this guy right here? He's extra information. We don't need him at this point. So let's write our formula. Area equals 1/2 of base 1 plus base 2 times height. I'm going to substitute in 1/2 is a constant. It's going to stay the same. Base 1 is 4 plus 7 times my height, which is 4. I'm going to address what is in parentheses first. So I'm going to take care of this one. 1/2 times, 4 plus 7 is 11. And then I'm going to bring my 4 down. Now this is all multiplication right here. This is all multiplication. 1/2 times 11 times 4. The commutative property of multiplication tells me I can multiply it in whatever order I want, and I should get the same answer. I like to do my whole numbers first. Some people, especially if they have an even number, like to take half of that even number first and then multiply. It is the same difference. But I do want you to realize PEMDAS tells me I do multiplication, and since this is all multiplication, I can do it in what order I like, and I like my whole numbers first. That makes me happy. But if they were really huge, I might want to divide one of them in half. So 1/2 times 44, and then this would be 22, I have meters squared because it's square meters. The area equals this. Now just a little bit of what I was talking about. Let's come this way. If I have 1/2 of 11 times 4, I might choose to do the 1/2 and the 4 first. 1/2 of 4 would be 2, and then we could do times 11, and we would get 22. Is that the same answer we had over here? Yes, and so I tend not to do this multiplication where you're doing like this unless if my numbers are really big. And if they're big, I don't like to multiply them that big. So I would want to reduce it down. If that tip helps you, great. If it confuses you, then set it aside. You're not ready for it right now. Okay, but what I want to point out is we do get the same answer. You have 4 practice problems to do. The key is at the back of the room. I want you to practice them, get successful, ask questions, and then move on to your homework after you're done. Great job. By the way, this page gets taped in your interactive notebook.